All right.
Go.
3, 2.
Cindy doesn't see it yet.
Scream! Hey, free flyers. Today we're going to talk about our next firmware release that's going stable. It's v1.5.
Awesome news.
Yeah.
I'm grooming Terry here to take over for me when it comes to lives.
Oh,
soon I'll get ousted from here and it'll just be Terry and Dennis.
Oh, jeez.
Terry, just a quick aside, I want to tell you why I call him Terry. His name is actually Daniel Riley. But on the last production, he was kind of, can you mimic how you were moving?
Oh,
like,
the pterodactyl dance?
Yeah.
I actually listened to a podcast about pterodactyls the other day, but I'll tell you about that later.
He was doing stuff like this.
This is a pterodactyl dance.
And then I thought he looked like a pterodactyl, so we started calling him Terry over the course of the shoot, and then it just stuck, and it's beloved, and now he's Terry.
Yes, I'm Terry.
Okay. I thought you were just attacking people thinking you're a dinosaur, but that's a lot better.
I never attacked anyone, for the record. No.
So today, in addition to hilarious jokes, we're going to teach you about MōVI version 1.5 firmware. I thought we'd run through some of the things are bug fixes, some of them are feature upgrades, some of them are upgrades specific for different products. So I thought we could talk through some of the more notable things. So starting off, in 1.5, we have released firmware that allows you to use fiber optic gyro. This was originally designed for MōVI XL, so this gyro gives you about roughly 1,000 times the precision of the IMU that comes stock in the MōVI Pro. And so this thing is precise enough that it can measure the rotation of the Earth. Like if you set it up on MōVI Pro and point it at something, it will move just, you know, it won't move actually. The Earth will rotate and it will appear to have moved, but it won't have moved, which is pretty wild.
Funny.
Yeah.
Someone was asking, is drifting over 5 hours? You're like, Earth is drifting.
Yeah, we had a couple of customers that set it up and they're like, I want to see if you guys are telling the truth. So they pointed at something and shot a time lapse for like 5 hours, and they were like, it's drifted 3 degrees or something, you know. It's like, it hasn't drifted, the Earth has rotated. But that was a great test that people did. You could potentially put this on MōVI Pro if you can figure out how to fit it, but it's just too big, I think. It's also a very potentially expensive upgrade for MōVI Pro. These type of gyros historically are just used for military applications and very, very precise gimbals. So it's super exciting for us to have this type of technology incorporated into our products. Anything you want to add on?
Yeah, that's the main one. So yeah, for MXL is new with this release.
Yeah. Any questions on fog? You guys want to know how this works? I can tell you, it's got photons inside for sure. It's got basically fiber, very tiny little fiber being wrapped around in both ways inside of here. Long, I don't even know how much, but a lot, as much fiber as they can pack in, and then they shoot light down the fiber, and then they measure the time it takes to get around. And as it's rotating, that time will be different, and they can measure it so precisely to derive a angular rotation rate that they can then integrate and turn into, you know, pan, tilt, and roll rates when they use 3 of them. So it's unbelievable how precise it is. Super cool.
Real science.
Yeah.
Real science.
Not something you can get from Radio Shack, really.
Nope. Is Radio Shack even around anymore? I don't think they're selling fiber optic gyros. Why don't you talk about the next one? We got bug fixes. That's kind of your domain, Dennis.
Sure. We got bug fixes. I guess the most interesting one for you guys is the...
Cindy's laughing. We must be doing a good job.
Yeah.
We killing it, Cindy?
Oh yeah. Yeah, a few months ago, Red updated their firmware on most of their new generation cameras. I think firmware version went from 6 to 7. This caused some integration issues with the Red features we have built in on MōVI Pro. So we worked on some fixes, and yeah, if you have the latest firmware running on Red, getting this update will run you smooth again. That's a big one.
What was root cause on that? We were trying to run our RCP too fast, right? I think that's what Schwartzmiller found.
Yeah, and then yeah, we didn't find anything in their documentation that we need to update anything either.
Yeah.
So there was some back and forth communication trying to figure out what's going on.
I think the update rate we were trying to run RCP at was too high, so it was like jamming it up essentially, and the controls on the Red would start to slow down, make people super aggravated, but it's sorted out now.
It's smooth.
It's smooth now. Daniel's tested it extensively.
Smooth like a wave.
Smooth like a pterodactyl.
Oh, I don't know if they're smooth.
Another one is kind of niche, but if you don't have red, if you're running like blank for camera starts, record start stop or Alexa, and if you didn't have a MōVI controller, there was no previous way like to set up the camera type of what the TSU communicates to the camera. So we added and fixed that to the MōVI Pro app. So you can go to the dual up screen and change what the record start stop type is for the MōVI Pro. And then there's a few like mimic and API related bugs that are probably boring to cover right now.
Yeah.
Then the next one is Majestic Span.
Majestic Span. No questions, Cindy?
No question.
Are we actually going out live?
There are 46 people watching now.
Okay. Ask some questions, people. We got Terry here. We got Dennis. We got myself. We can bring Thomas in if needed.
This is pretty much.
Thomas, you got a pro tip for us?
Pro tip.
Yeah.
Yeah, bring your own router when you're traveling so you can set up your own Wi-Fi network in hotel rooms.
I got a pro tip for you.
Yeah.
Don't drink coffee after noon.
This is my third cup.
Afternoon?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so this is the cool one, Majestic Span. So we exposed, let me take you back in time. Like 5 years ago, there were 3 of us, and we were like, oh, the MōVI is so cool, it stabilizes a shot perfectly, but we didn't even have a Majestic mode developed at that point, and we were thinking, man, people are gonna get so annoyed that they can't point the camera. So we devised way back in the day and patented Majestic mode, which allows a user to give inputs using the handlebars for pan and tilt. At the time we just had handlebars, we weren't smart enough to develop the ring just yet. And really the original thrust with MōVI was how to make things smooth. We weren't really thinking about how to make things ultra responsive, so we set what we call the Majestic Span, which I'll explain with a quick little drawing. We set it originally to 135 degrees. So if you think about MōVI handlebars, and then you think about the camera package, let's say that's the camera lens, we set the total Majestic Span, I don't know if that's exactly 135 degrees, probably not, to be 135 degrees. So this whole field is 135 degrees. So you have to move half of 135 degrees to get to 100% of your commanded rate. And so what we've done with this is we have allowed the users to define the size of this Majestic Span. And the net effect of that is you can set up, if you narrow that span, you can create settings where pan will follow your movements much more quickly rather than optimizing for smoothness. So as an example with this red package, I set the Majestic Span down to 60 degrees. And so what that means in practice is that now instead of 135 degrees, I'm only going to be moving 60 degrees total to get to maximum rate. So each side will be 30 degrees of movement, or 30 degrees until I'm at max rate. So you can see it's going to be much more active around center following my moves. And this will allow you to achieve settings where you can get very, very fast pan and tilt moves. You know, potentially if you want to mimic more like a slightly stabilized handheld configuration where you're moving very, very quickly, but maybe roll is staying level. So some people definitely have requested that quite a bit. So we've exposed that parameter in the Majestic settings on this firmware release. And then we've also published some sample configurations in the knowledge base to help you get going with the span. These settings are rough and you're going to have to dial it in. Basically, there will be limits on how narrow you can get the span without the camera package overshooting. I'll give you an example. So let's say I took the span down to 30 on this. I'm going to get overshoot because the motors can't, they're not powerful enough to accelerate and decelerate quickly. So at 30 setting, if I move fairly smoothly, I can do it. But if I whip real fast, I get some overshoot there because it can't keep up. So you'll have to experiment with those settings or use our kind of base default settings as a starting point. But the cool thing is you can achieve much different type of camera moves than people historically associate with a MōVI. Anything you want to add?
I don't know, I think that was really good explanation. My explanation is more like technical drawings, how curves work, etc.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that.
I'm not gonna...
That means either.
So if you think...
Is it to work in the morning? He starts off in Seattle and then 520 bridge. We hit about 120 there and we got to take a right. So this is where this is our exit strategy in case we can't make that corner.
Yeah, speed versus the handlebar degrees turning out to the curve. But I'll take your response a lot better. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's move on.
Yeah, basically, yeah, Majestic Span lets you get whip pan kind of movements a lot better.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to do ultra fast camera operating, it helps a lot. What else do we want to talk about?
I think that's it for 1.5.
Okay.
All right.
How about new features in the future?
Yeah, so we're constantly developing new firmware, and the team is way out in front of in the future working on version 2.0 for MōVI Pro and MōVI XL, and we want to show a couple of the cool features that we have developed for version 2 software. One of the first ones was inspired by MōVI Cinema Robot. If you haven't played with this, it's really fun, and it can roll around in 360 degrees. We've got Majestic Roll that can go all the way around on Cinema Robot, as well as a mode called, or a method called barrel roll mode, where you can input a specific roll rate, and then the robot will do that roll, and you just have to follow it around with the gimbal. So Shane has been kind enough to port some of these features over to MōVI, so we can demonstrate those. So,
Okay.
do you want me to grab the ring for you, or are you good?
I'm good.
Okay.
So we've got snap roll.
So the first one we should talk about is Majestic Roll with snapping. So whatever 90-degree increment you're closest to, it will snap to. So now it's having this be, now it's upside down, so it'll keep this bar level. Can you go back to portrait mode for a second? So as an example, if you wanted to shoot portrait mode with really high quality, you could run something like this and shoot it. Majestic mode still works. So Daniel, show how you would change the pan. Show how you would point over there. Yeah, see? So all the same settings that control Majestic mode are still applicable here. It's just rotated, everything's rotated 90 degrees. And then I think, yeah, and then it'll snap back to level. I think the next one we want to showcase is just Majestic Roll, normal Majestic Roll.
1 second for setup. Alright, give it a shot. Yeah.
Smooth.
And so with this one, you can control, same thing, window, span, smoothing, everything, and just get it set how you want to.
Yeah, previously this was only plus minus like 160 degrees.
Yeah.
Now you can go forever. Like Cinema
Shane befriended the Quaternion and gave us this, which is super fun.
Yeah.
This would be better with a ring, but we just have it on handlebars because you can also do roll with the pan motor, which we'll show you now.
I just want to point out that we do have a ring. Terry just chose not to bring it for this show.
Come on, Terry.
For unknown reasons.
To the pan motor.
Alright. You want to show the panhandle version?
Yes.
Yeah. Alright.
Then the other thing, there's the Tim Sessler mode, which we're going to showcase now, where you can actually use the pan motor to act as the roll motor so that you can do 360-degree roll moves.
Yeah, so only thing you'll need to do once we release this is enable the extended roll modes. Then you can configure the zoom rocker on MōVI controller to be a roll input instead of zoom. And then you can roll forever like this. You can both roll your roll axis and then roll your camera forever with MōVI Pro.
It still stabilizes.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Just amazing.
Then we have one additional feature.
Somebody on Facebook actually, like, I don't know if everyone's as amazed with this I am, but someone on Facebook commented and said, I can't understand why it's so hard to do 360 roll. And like, yeah, it just blew my mind. If you had any understanding of the level of like kinematics and math that it takes to make this happen and make it happen in all different poses and geometries, it's just incredible. So I refute that comment.
Roll me back to level. Thanks.
Okay. And then next one that I want to show is tilt snapping.
Can we can we show just the regular roll? Like if you want to just hold MōVI in a normal way and do a 180 roll. So you can now just roll through the singularity.
Yeah.
or gimbal lock, whatever you want to call it.
One more new mode we have with this roll is ability to do tilt snapping as well. So this is very useful if you want to do continuous roll, but also lock your tilt to look straight forward. Then you can enable tilt mode to be locked, and then you can either hold it like this way and then rotate your ring continuously, or do the other way, Tim Sester mode, and then tilt will always look straight, and then you can do continuous roll with that tilt locked.
And this would be really helpful for if you're like, so let's say you want to shoot down a hall and you want to do a perfect axial roll down the hall. This is really helpful for that, because that can be a really tough thing to do when you're in Majestic only mode. A lot of math. A lot of maths.
Stabilizing perfectly. It's so cool.
Nice
I've
work,
never
Terry.
actually played with this. It's
Here's another pro tip. If your MōVI Pro is ever too heavy for you, just go ahead and remove that cover and run coverless. You can save, what, 25 grams that way?
I'm gonna say
How
no
Daniel-
just to save your ass from the support teams.
Don't do that. Don't do that. So yeah, these are all upcoming features of MōVI version 2.0 that will be coming. Hey, is Ethan around? Ethan,
Hulk.
Ethan, Engineering Hulk. Can you come here for a sec? Excellent.
We heard some other stuff going on.
Yeah, I was reading on Jira, and
very good.
can you pick one cool feature? Come over here, come on this side. One cool feature for version 2.0 that you're working on, maybe ludicrous mode?
Ludicrous
This is for you,
modes, Yeah.
guest presenter.
Basically, we're increasing the power to the motors for short periods of time, so that as the motors, you can't put too much current through the motors because they'll start to heat up. But you can put a ton of current in there for a short period of time. So if you are, in the wind or something like that, and you need a lot more performance out of the gimbal, you can give it a ton of current for a short period of time. So
Yeah.
we're doing that.
Yeah,
That's one.
Sounds like some math is involved again.
some math for sure. So I think
Thermal modeling.
Yeah, the thermal modeling. The interesting thing to talk through on that is we have batteries of a certain size that have a certain discharge capability, and then we have motors of a certain size that can only dissipate a certain amount of heat. So we have those two constraints to work with. So you have to balance how much power can we pull from the batteries, and then how much power can we send through the motors without burning them up. For people that don't know, there's basically, if you imagine just a bunch of copper wound around a stator in here, and the wire is very small. You can send potentially a ton of power through them for a very short amount of time, and then you'll have to taper it down over time so they
It's
don't
exponential.
light the thing on fire.
Yeah.
So Ethan is experimenting with figuring out exactly what the point is where this thing bursts into flame, and then backing us down 2% from there. 2%?
1 or 2%.
If you see what this guy drives, you'll know that we're probably going to launch with 5% more than what will burst into flames. No, we can't do that.
I mean, otherwise it's easy to just put like a 5-pound motor there and make this thing like weigh 100 kilograms.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when we originally designed MōVI Pro, we set a very, very aggressive weight target because we want people to be able to do that, which is pick it up off of a table easily and not start sweating instantly. So that's why. So we're trying to optimize power to weight essentially.
Like everyday engineering meetings were like, where's that 0.1 gram?
Yeah.
And Tab is coming with the stick. Did you
During development of MōVI Pro, we figured out that saving 1 gram was worth an additional $1 in cost. So that's how serious we were about cutting weight out of this thing. So we kind of approached it as though we would approach designing a drone or an aircraft. That's why it's ultralight. Do you have any other pro tips? Any pro tips you'd like to share?
Oh, goodness. I'll have to think about it and get back to you.
You should give a plug for your and Daniel's upcoming short film. Actually, it might be out already. It's
Daniel's YouTube channel, RC Test Flight.
Yeah, if you haven't seen yet, Ethan has created a device known as the bar stool, which is an
Stool sample.
stool sample. That's right, an electric bar stool contraption, and then him and Daniel tried to fly it. So check that out on RC Test Flight.
Tried to fly?
They tried to fly it. You didn't see it yet?
No.
Yeah, they tried to fly it.
Flight was our objective, but
Ethan was dreaming of flight. All right. Any questions we want to answer?
I don't have any questions specific to this, but I have a couple of random questions.
Sure, let's do it.
Well, somebody know how to balance their Sony FS5 too. Probably they need to contact support if they're struggling.
FS5 II. I don't think there's anything bizarre about that camera, so you should be able to follow just our standard balancing protocol for MōVI Pro. If you look at MōVI Pro tutorials or something that'll help you out there, or contact support and they'll walk you through it.
Yeah, you have tutorial on YouTube.
Yeah.
We went over the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, this one's a long question. I don't understand it. I'm going to go slow.
Okay.
Does RCP control electronic EF lenses?
It sure does.
Oh yeah.
So could he pull focus with the gamepad, for instance, without motors through
Yeah.
You
his?
sure can.
You don't even need gamepad. It's like if you have like a Canon EF lens through Red, only thing you need is like a cable
Yep.
and nothing else.
All
Like
you
you
need
can use Mimic with hand gestures to even pull focus. Nothing else.
And if you have Bush Pilot, you can also use that. All you need is the cable that goes from MōVI Pro TSU to Red RCP.
Like that's like the lightest you can ever get, probably.
Super light.
Super cool.
Another one?
So what's the ETA for 2.0?
What's the ETA for 2.0, Dennis?
That's a big question.
He runs. I don't know if we're at a point where we want to say a date yet.
Yeah.
Because things are moving very quick, and depending on if Ethan makes ludicrous mode too aggressive, it could introduce a lot of testing, that kind of thing.
Yeah, right now we are like deep in development, which will be followed by like alpha releases internally, then beta. So it's definitely in the short term.
I like this question. Can you activate 360 roll from Mimic?
Yes. For version 2.0, yes.
For 2.0.
Yeah, exactly. I think you can actually
It's
do
already-
you can do 360 roll on Mimic now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can already do that.
Oh, they want a beta sign-up list.
Yeah.
You can join the beta.
Yeah?
Yep. What else?
Is there any way of controlling tilt motors from the MōVI?
Is there any way of controlling tilt motors from the MōVI? I think what they probably mean is, do we have any like joystick add-ons or anything where you
Is
can
it
control
Tilda?
tilt?
Tilda.
Oh, that's a company.
Oh.
That's it, sorry.
Tilta.
Tilta.
I don't know enough about those motors to know.
They're fully integrated. It's like their own.
They have the driver integrated? No, probably not then.
If they went their own path of creating something custom, it's not gonna work. But any typical industry standard fizz motor works.
Yeah.
So did you auto-tune MōVI Pro for this setup, or did you tune it by yourself?
Daniel set it up, and I'm guessing he auto-tuned.
I did not.
You didn't?
I don't use auto-tune very frequently, no.
Why?
He's been using MōVI Pro for so long,
I
that's
like
why.
to consider myself a MōVI whisperer, so I'm more confident in my own abilities.
So the deal
Auto?
is...
For the record, you should not trust your own abilities versus
Yeah.
auto-tune.
Hey, I'm not hating
Auto-tune has a
auto-tune.
thing behind it known as physics and math, which is always better than humans. So you should trust auto-tune.
That was the
I mean,
whole deal.
I endorse auto-tune.
I used to be like, oh, I think I can tune a MōVI better than auto-tune can. And then I used auto-tune 100 times, and I was like, yeah, you win, Shane.
So basically, we used to spend 15 minutes every time we set up a new camera, and then call Shane.
Yeah.
Hey, my filters are not
Back in the
perfect,
day-
maybe.
Back in the day, we'd be tapping. I can't tell. Maybe it's a little overtuned. But is it coming from tilt or pan or is it roll? I can't tell. None
And
of
then
that.
we
Just
decided
hit
to
auto-tune,
replace
wait
Shane.
10 seconds, done. Robot obsoletes human. Human clings to life, hoping that he has usefulness. He doesn't. Auto-tune wins.
Just focus on your
fair
creative
enough.
shots, man.
Okay, I'll just go away now.
Any other one, City?
So Patrick says he was using a red,
Yep.
and when he tilted the MōVI Pro up, like Daniel just did, it would start to go limp. Is that normal?
Limp. What does he mean? Like it just dies or starts spinning, or
Well, that's a good.
there's
So
also there's
it's
no currently
going into
support.
gimbal lock because the
Oh,
pan
yeah,
motor
yeah, yeah.
aligns with the roll mode.
That's the whole deal with this new feature. Like you currently cannot do continuous roll. Yeah, so if the roll motor matches this, the pan arm, there's no software that
Yeah.
figures out what's.
Pro, and at extreme angles, when you tilt, it goes left.
So the pan motor is aligning with the roll motor.
Yeah,
I
is
don't
it
know
like
if that's
this?
this guy's problem or not, but it could be. If it's a specific thing like that, say you should contact support and we'll get you fixed up.
Cool. Couple questions for you guys about batteries.
Yeah.
One, they want bigger batteries. Why don't we have bigger batteries?
Good idea. Maybe we'll work on it.
And then somebody else wanted to know, how low should I let my batteries go before I switch them without damaging them?
You won't damage them. They have internal protection to cut off at a cell voltage, which is still fine for the lithium cells that are inside. But I tend to not let them go down below, I don't know, 30%.
Yeah, just because like when you want to swap batteries, sometimes you push the like motors hard. If it's like already like at 20%, that kind of action will probably drop the voltage. You might like end up turning off the camera. So I change it. Otherwise, like another tip is just to double tap to kill. This way, when you're switching, like there's no risk of like going under voltage. Another pro tip, actually, if people know, 1.5 also has. Is this 1.5? This one? Yeah. Should be. The power screen. So when you tap the power button once, you have few options here. First one is tapping again, which will kill all the motors. That was already been there. And then few new things are if you press this one and then this button which says record, you can do a quick like record start stop. So this combo always will record start stop as a quick button. And then
Majestic override.
That's also very useful, I think.
Yes.
If you have a DP running Mimic a few hundred feet away and you're like out somewhere in the jungle running with the MōVI, and then the shot is over, usually sometimes like people forget that they are controlling Mimic. They start talking to someone else, swinging Mimic around, and your camera is going crazy. In those kind of cases, when you don't want to kill the motors, you can do Majestic override with this button. What it does is it disables every external input coming to the MōVI, so it will guarantee being in Majestic mode.
You might be having a disagreement with the person running the MōVI controller on framing too, so you just tap that and you take over, finish the shot out as you want.
Yeah. Let's see. So that one and then Majestic override. Yeah. Any other questions?
I do have other questions. What about infinite roll with thumb control, like the Red Rock micro satellite?
So we released API last year.
Okay.
You can create your own controllers, even using like a $10 Arduino, which we used on set before. If you plug those in like to the COM port, you can do continuous command, or you could attach Mimic to the handlebars with a gamepad and do continuous roll like that.
I just got notice that we have a guest stopping by.
Huh, look at that guy.
Hi, Benji.
Hi, Tab.
How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Here, let's give you this mic.
Thank you.
What do you know?
I know things about software.
You do?
Yes.
Like what?
How fresh they're going to be.
How fresh?
Yeah.
How fresh?
Quite fresh.
What software specifically?
The Android app.
How's it coming?
It's coming along pretty nicely. Yeah.
You're getting good feedback on beta?
Yeah, I really appreciate our beta testers out there. I appreciate the feedback you're giving us. We're making some good changes to make the best app we can.
He got me sufficiently excited that I actually purchased an Android device.
That's like insane.
Which is like, that was a rough moment for me. Yeah.
It's a better lifestyle is what it is.
Thank you for joining.
Benji's like fixing $500 a day to make this experience.
The cool thing is, Dennis is developing for iOS, which has one nice ecosystem that all works together. Benji is developing for 700 different discrete products, so we need to send our love and prayers for him.
If you guys are asking why Android is always late, blah, blah, please talk to Android community itself for creating 1 million devices that all work different from each other.
Next question?
Yeah, why does auto-tune default at 70%? Why do you not recommend going higher?
You want to take it?
Sure, that's like the margin. So 100% would be like perfect, assuming like there's zero tolerance. But if you reduce that, the remaining portion, so if you are at 70%, 30% is kind of your tolerance. So it's kind of up to you. If you think like the balance is like 100% perfect, and you're not going from, let's say, alta to handles to different situations, you can probably increase from 70% upwards.
The reason why we set that setting is we thought it was a good compromise between performance and margin. So we didn't want to set a auto-tune percentage that tried to achieve a really high stiffness setting, but was really temperamental, you know, in use, where you might get vibrations or oscillations in different pose. So we thought that was the optimal trade-off, but you can vary it if you want to.
Yeah, I usually stick between 50 to 70. 70 if it's balanced and I'm just gonna use it on handheld.
Yep.
50 if I'm like trying to run fast, and then maybe switch from handles to cable cam to rope shots to give more like room for error.
It kind of depends on the type of shot you're doing too. Like, there's a little more leeway if you're using a wide angle lens and you don't need stabilization to be quite as on point. But then if I know I'm going to fly a 100mm lens on an Alta, I'm going to spend a little bit more time balancing and a little bit more time trying to achieve the highest stiffness setting I can.
Can you use Futaba or Spectrum controllers with MōVI Pro?
Yeah, both.
Will there ever be a MōVI Carbon with a larger camera like a Red?
That sounds great.
Sounds great.
Yeah, good idea.
We just need
What about a
500 more.
smaller MōVI Pro?
Smaller MōVI Pro.
Back to like an M5 or an M10.
Also good idea. Please
love
send
all
just
these
a
like
truckload of mechanical engineers our way at your earliest convenience.
Ooh, we've recently featured Myron Mance on our social media channels.
Yep.
And he would like to know if it's possible to set endpoints to Majestic follow, where an expo follows direct at an endpoint.
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it says. Is it possible to set endpoints to Majestic follow, where an expo follows direct at an endpoint?
Expo follows what?
Where expo follows direct at endpoint.
I don't think I'm smart enough to
Sorry,
understand the question.
Myron, clarify please.
Yeah. I'm sure it's possible, but it probably isn't implemented currently.
Ooh. Someone would love to see a tutorial on how you mount your MōVI Pro to a vehicle. Do you have anything like that?
Well, I have a blog post I did titled "How to Create a Batmobile" or something similar to that,
Right.
where I show you how to turn a normal grocery-getting SUV into a fire-breathing camera car. So that covers a lot of the rigging that it takes to mount a black arm. But as far as mounting a MōVI Pro, once the black arm or whatever your support system of choice is set up, it's really just as easy as using the quick release to. Oh no, we've got another guest.
Oh no.
Chris, what's up?
Guest in real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I clear something up?
Whoa, it's getting serious now.
No, I just wanted to eliminate the confusion, because there are already a few people on a ticket asking about. Someone mentioned the infinite roll.
Yeah.
You can obviously do that with when it's set up as he was holding it with the pan motor.
Yep.
But you can't do infinite roll with the actual roll motor because of the physical stops.
Yeah.
Yeah, so some people were confused by that. They were thinking that that can continually roll on that axis.
Got it.
So I just wanted to avoid the confusion for that. So
Yeah, the only way you'd be able to do that is if you followed it with the handles.
yeah,
Yeah.
so sorry to interrupt, but
No
that's-
problem. MōVI Pro has mechanical stops to prevent this wire from getting torn out. So when you flip from upright to inverted mode, so what Chris said is exactly right. There's mechanical stops that prevent you from going too far, so you would need to follow with the handlebars.
Only goes like from this much to all the way here.
What's next, Cindy?
Do you have any videos that best explain the settings of the app with Majestic mode?
I feel like we do, but I'm not 100% sure. We can do one, if so.
So what setting would you recommend for shaky or handheld mode?
Kind of what I was demoing down here. Like on pan, I got down to somewhere in the 65 range on span, and then I had my smoothing set at 5 and window set at 1. So I have just the tiniest little bit of smoothing being applied to my moves, but it's going to follow everything I do with pan very precisely.
I have a pro tip.
Pro tip.
If you really need to like be super direct, MōVI itself doesn't have any like direct modes. They are mostly meant for like smooth moves. What you can do is put a mimic like here, turn mimic in direct mode, and then mimic would be actually framing the MōVI. That way you can get a lot more like faster responding shots. And then make sure you don't have the antenna on, since mimic with the antenna is very powerful. Being too close to the MōVI, it will interfere. So
All right.
that's an idea.
What's next, Cindy?
Will there ever be active tracking?
Active tracking on MōVI Cinema Robot. I have to assume what they're talking about.
You mean like face tracking, image tracking kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think there will be at some point in the future.
Yeah.
I don't know how near or far that future is, but it will exist.
We do have prototypes that work in R&D, but we have higher priority features to actually take out to the world right now.
I think that's it.
That's
it?
it? Okay.
All
Office hours closing.
Ooh, for a MōVI mounted on, oh, this is a very specific question. For
Let's
a
do it.
MōVI mounted on a car with a 50 millimeter and a black arm, did you use 100% tuning or below?
Oh no, use 70% tuning for something like that. And then I think the thing that you'll need to pay specific attention to with that setup is making sure you have enough of the weight plates on the black arm to allow you to get a pan tuning that is sufficient. So you'll start with 70% and experiment from there.
Yeah.
I got Myron. Myron's back.
Okay, let's do it.
If one has high smoothing for tight lenses, but would like more speed to the end of the pan kind of end point, could it ramp in and out?
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're changing with Majestic Span. So I think he would be able, I'm hopeful that he would be able to achieve his desired result with Majestic Span. So Myron, as an example, let's say that you're shooting a 100 millimeter lens, so you want very smooth moves, so you take your smoothing setting up very high, like let's say smoothing's at 50, but then you reduce your Majestic Span to only 45 degrees. You're still going to have very smooth moves, but you're going to be able to achieve 100% of your rate when the MōVI has only, when the handlebars have only moved 22.5 degrees. So I think that will allow you to achieve what you want. If not, just email Dennis and he'll cook it right up.
Yeah. Sounded like that's what you need actually. Yeah.
We done, Cindy? Is that it?
Well, when will we see
Well.
a MōVI Cinema Robot update?
MōVI Cinema, we just got done with the damn thing, people. Jeez Louise.
Soon there will be more updates actually.
We
We don't want to spoil this MōVI Pro kind of Facebook
How
Live.
about if we just change the color to like white or something and we call it an update? Does that suffice?
No,
No.
not enough for me. Yeah. There's a lot of cool stuff coming actually.
Yeah, most of the updates I think are going to be in the software domain for this guy in the near future because honestly it does what we need from a hardware perspective and it'd be a ton of work for very little incremental gain in performance. Good?
I think we're good.
All right. Terry, thank you for joining. Dennis, thank you for joining.
Nice job,
See you
Terry.
next time. Chris, thank you for being prepared on time. Right on.
Thank you, Chris, coming to clarify everything. Thank you, Cindy. And thank you for your fly.
Thanks for having me.
Cindy version 1, Cindy version 2.
Cindy version 3?
Oh yeah. Tune in next week for more YouTube Live, I think.
Something exciting, new and different. From
I mean,
Robotics?
there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, we're launching, did you end already? We're launching a robotics division of the company and we're going to discuss it next week. All these crazy scooters and stool samples and other things that you see cruising around in our Instagram stories are powered by awesome robotic dev blocks that we build and we're launching the first one soon. So tune in. Thanks. We're out.